Welcome to the Existential Empath Podcast. My name is Tanya, and I am an intuitive empath. My intention is to share valuable tips, tools, and techniques that I have learned so you can tap into your own inner healer naturally and intuitively. Welcome back, everyone. Today, I have a really fun show. I have two special guests with me. I have Elyse Falzone and Gina Starbuck. And these ladies are energetic alchemists. And they're also the founders of Awake Soulful, a modern day mystery school that incorporates the ancient practices of Reiki, sound healing, somatic practices, energy medicine, shamanism, and more. And we are going to be talking about all of that today. And so their mission is to activate a deeper connection that's genuine and authentic, to celebrate the expansiveness of both the individual and the collective. Welcome, ladies. It's such a pleasure to have both of you on the show today.
Thank you.
So we were talking about how we just made a really juicy title. We're going to be talking about modern day mystery schools, remembering our ancient healing wisdom within. And so as a society, we have a lure towards supernatural, and that's because we are supernatural, right? And so many people around the planet are beginning to start these mystery schools, not necessarily to become Harry Potter, but for more of connecting people so we can remember our ancient wisdom. We can remember that we can heal from within, and we can also connect and activate each other on our own inner knowledge, our own inner wisdom through different healing practices like shamanic journeys and ceremonies. And so, ladies, when we connected, I thought, oh, this is going to be a really fun show because I want us to dive into the different modalities that you're incorporating and using. And I love the term modern day mystery school because that's exactly what we're doing. We're beginning to learn and remember who we are on a much deeper soul level. And so my first question to you ladies is, what is a modern day mystery school and what made you want to start one?
Ooh, okay. Well, thank you for
that. Right off the bat.
Yeah, it's a very loaded question. So the funny thing and the beautiful thing about modern day mystery school is it actually came to us through someone we did a bit of mentoring with. We were really in this inquiry, like, what do we even call ourselves? What do we call our business? What even is this that we're doing? Because we have very much been on like the Venusian path, that like kind of divine feminine path of discovery, where we tend to really go into the body and go into ourselves and go into these practices with the knowing that whatever's going to unfold is going to be totally in the like highest good of everyone. However, with that, sometimes it can be really hard to articulate what exactly is happening, because it's like this funny thing that happens, right? Where it's like the energy is moving, these like beautiful transformational journeys are happening, these mysteries are being felt and experienced, right? And then we're kind of retroactively going in and trying to make sense of these things that are so somatically indescribable. And so in this inquiry with someone we were mentoring with, she said, you're not like, don't call yourselves healers. I think she said, right? Which like we kind of don't anyway, because we believe like the healing is within. She was like, you're teachers, and what you're running is a modern day mystery school.
I love it. You're like, yes,
that's it. That's exactly. She's like, you're just helping people to go into their ancient wisdom codex and to access it and to make sense of it and to express it. So like in a brief description, that's essentially what it is. It's a space where we offer teachings and where we help to guide people to the ancient memories that are already inside of them. And we do it in a way, the modern day comes in because we're not like going and hiding away in caves to do this. We're not like living completely disconnected from society, off grid, doing this in that way, that is beautiful. And it's not what we're called to do. It really is a modern day mystery school, because we are helping to bridge that gap between these like really mystical, metaphysical explorations and how we can anchor them into our lives in this modern world. Which is an interesting inquiry, right? Because many of us don't really have the space that would be required to be in this like constant shamanic journeying, right?
And who wants to be in that all the time?
Yeah, truly. Yeah. So that's the short description.
Intense. That
At
was a
least we have
beautiful
one.
explanation. Thank you. That was really, really nice. And, I think I do feel that this show is going to activate a lot of those out there who are like, I want to bring people together and I want to connect. So what advice do you ladies have for those out there who want to start their own modern day mystery school? What was your journey to get to this point, and what can you share with others who might be, out there saying, I want to do this too, and I want to help heal the planet, I want to help heal myself, and I want to help heal others all at the same time?
Yeah, these questions are so big, like so big and so juicy. So, okay, let's start with, for people who already know, like they're ready. They're ready, they're feeling that call to bring people together. Um, One of the first things that I know for me personally has always been so great is attending things myself in my local area. So local sound baths, local drum circles, finding places where you can meet some of these people. And then, you know, host your own full moon circle. Host your own, gathering where it can be something so simple where you do like card readings together, oracle card readings together and set an intention. It can start that simple. And of course, if you want to go bigger and broader and the whole thing, then I would offer the invitation to connect with someone like Gina and I, or someone who has been down the path, so that you can learn these techniques and just really, again, remember those skills and remember that innate knowing within your being. Because we all have it. We were all born with this intuition, and we were all born with this inner medicine that we have to offer. And sometimes it just needs a little refinement and a little something to help brew it to the surface, so that you actually know how to offer it into the world and how to hold that space where you're feeling good and grounded and offering from a full cup, rather than, just giving, 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 and not really understanding what it means to refill your own well and come from that place of source initiated offerings.
Oh, that's powerful. And I think many of us, we go down these paths of our own healing, right? And that's how I learned energy medicine, EFT tapping, hypnosis, all these different things. And I got to a point where I was beginning to heal myself from within by learning these different healing modalities. And many of them go back really far back, like shamanism and ceremonies. And we're going to talk about each of these. And so I do feel once you get a good feeling for, okay, I'm feeling pretty good. And I love how you said you want to go when your cup is full, because you can't, or, you can't be constantly giving and giving and giving of yourself if you haven't really given to yourself. Right. And so, and it's like this beautiful harmony that takes place too when we do any of these gatherings where people connect, because we're healing ourselves and we're healing the planet as well. And so this has been something that I've been guided to do, is to do grid work. And this is when I get together with others. And I want to talk about grid work in this show, because this is something that it seems like you ladies are doing too in your ceremonies. You're bringing people together, and we're doing some massive healing of, the people and the planet. And so, what do you feel the importance of bringing people together to enhance our intuitive abilities and to heal and to activate? What is the importance of that?
This is a good question as well. I also wanted to just add, to the previous question, the reminder that it really is important. It can be super exciting, right? Like, I've got these activations and I've got these gifts and there's this medicine inside of me and I want to share it. And sometimes even it can become a little bit of an egoic thing, right? Like I want to express these gifts so that people can see them, so that I can be affirmed or whatever. And so I would just offer that when you are getting to a place where you are, cultivating these spaces and being called to hold these containers, like have the awareness, if you have the capacity to hold the container, and there's a different ways that we can hold, and there's different ways that we can offer medicine. And so, be really honest with yourself where your intention is and what your capacity is, because it seems like oftentimes people can get really caught up in this idea, like I'm holding the circle, I'm the leader, I'm the guide. And that may be true. But if you're not in a position to really fully be able to hold and to tend to all the things that might pop off when you're going into these kinds of journeys, either have support, have additional space holders, or be clear with that, be authentic. Hey, I'm going to hold this gathering and I would like to put it together. And this is a space where we can all come and just explore together, and being really clear about what's happening, what's my intention, what's my capacity, what's my ability, feels like just an important thing to touch on, because we are so
It's the piece of integrity, right? It's the integrity piece that's really the thread there.
Yeah, I think that takes some balance to get there, right? Because like you said, we're very gung-ho when we come out. It's like, I just want to share everything with everyone. And I've had to learn that too. It's like, okay, Tanya, put the brakes on a little bit here. It's like, hold some space for people. And in those moments, I've even noticed that when I work with people, just listening and holding space, they have their own aha moments, their own light bulbs go off, versus me kind of guiding them through it. So I love that you brought that up, because that's a very powerful piece right there. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I really feel like it feeds into the coming together, and Elyse and I are really in a space in our offerings and our medicine where we have like a full knowing that it's not about us. We do have the capacity to tend to whatever might come up. We have a trauma-informed approach to our work, and we have an awareness around how to work with and hold different things and different energies and support people. And on the same note, we really understand that each being is going to bring their unique medicine, their power, and that it's not really about what we are doing or what we can offer, but it's like knowing that every single being that comes to the space holds this like specific resonance within the harmonics of the group. And so we've come into this place where we're really just excited to witness and allow everybody's voice to be heard, everybody's medicine to be experienced and to be witnessed. And the coming together piece is something that is ancient. Like we're not, at least I want to say at least on this planet, but I'm like getting a download. It's like, oh, other planets too, right? But like biologically, as human beings, we are designed for connection. We really do grow and learn and thrive and evolve together. Evolution is not necessarily an individualistic journey. I mean, it can be, right? Like there's so many threads to this, but I'm not religious by any stretch of the means, but I think there's like a Bible verse, right? That's like where one or more gather. And it's this thing about prayer, and where there's a shared intention, and how that can really amplify things. So
like the Maharishi effect. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's, when a group of people get together, and I witnessed this in Florida when I lived there during one of the major hurricanes. I noticed people would go to the Miami coast and start praying, and then the hurricane would move to the other coast and people would go over there and start praying, and then the hurricane moved back. So I was witnessing the power of our intention in our prayer to actually manipulate the weather. And I was in Orlando at the time, and I was like, do I go to my sister's in Sarasota? Does she come here? Where do we go? It was all over the place for a good couple days. But then once I began to recognize that the ceremonies that were taking place on the beach side with huge gatherings of people were actually what was moving the energy. And it was fascinating to see.
That is really fascinating. And I know that to be true. I know that there are different cities around the world that have been set up in a way, in such a powerful way of prayer and intention and gridding, that sets this space and sets this container of protection. And when we gather together, we have, well, when we're with ourselves, right, we have this auric field, and we have our field of quantum that lives and breathes with us and around us. And when we come together, it's like, I've got full body chills, like that, the auric field, like it breathes so far out, and it creates this ripple effect that can be felt so far beyond. And I think that is, it's potent. And sometimes we're not always visually seeing it with our physical eyes. But if we can close our eyes and we can tune in and we can feel into that village, feel into the community, there's power in healing, and power in creation, and power in all things that can be creation. Creation just keeps coming forward. Like, there's so much availability in that, like, life breath of community.
Oh, it reminds me, I have a very powerful story about this, and I want to talk about grid work because this is really important, because many of us are being guided to do this. And you asked me 3 years ago what grid work meant. I would be like, I don't know what to tell you. But in my 30s, I traveled to over 50 countries, and it was somewhere where I was being guided to go. Now, at the time, my friend was a chaplain, and she was guiding me into all these churches. And I didn't really want to go to the churches. I wanted to go see other things like medieval castles and, the landscape and whatnot. Well, during that time, I'm a transmuter. So I was transmuting all of this heavy energy in these really old, ancient churches. And I remember one when I was in Croatia, and I walked in, and I started feeling like I was having a panic attack. I had to sit down. I really had to breathe through it. And by the time I stepped out of that church, I felt like I had been through a funeral. I mean, it just was so intense for me. And it took me many years to even figure out that what I was doing was grid work. And so, I have a really powerful story about this, and how, Gina, you had talked about how everyone brings their own medicine to the table. And I had a 7-year-old boy bring his medicine to my table, and I was flabbergasted by it. There was a group of us that were planning to meet at a sacred site during that week. And so I was doing, before bed, I was asking for my higher self to bring through information, because I knew that we were going to be doing some clearings and some work together. And this is a group, we get together maybe once a year or so, and we kind of activate each other, activate the land. Well, that evening I had woken up at like 2 or 3 in the morning and started drawing all these symbols out. And I was like, what do these mean? And I had a whole paper full of them, and I was drawing them from right to left, almost like how you would read Hebrew, And there was one specifically with a spiral and 3 dots. Okay. And that was one I was really drawn to. So one of my friends said, why don't you bring those pictures or hieroglyphs, whatever you're drawing, with you? Okay. Well, I get there and I'm asking a few people, what do you think these are? And this little 7-year-old boy walks up to me, grabs the piece of paper and says, well, first of all, you have it upside down. And he flips it upside down. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, don't you see? This here is a mountain. This is a water source. This is, a portal. He goes, these are portals. These are ley lines. These are energy points. And I'm like, what? So of course, immediately I get some information coming through that there's some ley lines in the area. So I get my little group together, and it ended up just being 3 of us. And the power Nikola Tesla talks about 3, 6, and 9, right? So there was probably 10 of us there, and it ended up just being 3 of us. So what we did is we found the ley line. I placed the symbol down on the ground, and we literally meditated on this symbol. At the time, the sky was not like how you see in my picture behind me. It was very overcast. It wasn't raining. It was very cloudy. Well, we meditated for maybe a couple minutes on this symbol, just visualizing it in our mind. And I'm not even joking. Within a few minutes, the sky turned brilliant blue, a huge rainbow appeared, and within 30 minutes, Mount Hood erupted like a little bit of an earthquake, not significant, but a little tremor. And we were like, did we just do that? Like, I mean, it was just this course of synchronicities that happened. And, looking back, you can think, oh, maybe it was just a coincidence. But I personally feel that that's what we did. We shifted the energy. And when you do it on a ley line, it's even more powerful. And so, ladies, have you had any experiences like this in your ceremonies that you can share? Because I think as grid workers, and you're giggling, I can see you as grid workers, it's almost like when you wake up to the wisdom that, whoa, we're so powerful. We can actually create an energy ripple effect. And what it reminded me of is in the body, when I help people release trapped emotions, they quiver sometimes. And it was almost like on a bigger scale with the earth. So do you have any stories that you could share of your grid work?
We're both giggling. I feel like we both have like so many, like together, individually.
And it's fun when it happens, right?
Yeah, it's super fun. I mean, I'm trying to like dig and see if there's like one specific thing that wants to come through. I feel like for me, what's resonant is just and this isn't necessarily like a direct answer to your question. Elyse might have one that's more direct.
It's whatever comes through.
Yeah, but it's just this notion. So there's two things that are coming forward. Both of these things I heard from like other sources, but they felt so resonant to me. And it's really about the connection, right, between our bodies and the land and source, and how we really are we are the ley lines.
You're right.
We are the bridges.
Oh, but a light bulb just went off in my head. We're the organs, we're the energy source.
Exactly. That's just really what's wanting to come through. And there's like two kind of analogies that have come forward. One, Elyse has heard me say a million times, but someone once said that we are the fruiting bodies of the mycelial network. That, that like there's this mycelium that moves through the entirety of our planet, this grid system that's interconnected through every single piece of land and the water, and it probably goes all the way down to inner earth and all of that, and how we really are an aspect of that fungi, right? So we're these fruiting bodies of the mycelial network, and we become these like antennas, right? But we forget, and this is part of the ancient wisdom, the remembering, right? Remembering simply that like, we are interconnected with every single thing that has ever happened on this planet and with each other. So that's one. And then most recently, I heard someone say, Matthias de Stefano. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yes, he was coming to mind before we even started the show. I watched his show over and over, and I'm like, oh.
It's so juicy. And he had said that we're the AI of the mineral kingdom.
Ooh.
I know. So
I heard something. There's this whole concept that mushrooms are aliens and they came here to spread and to do all of this. And this just recently came up a week or two ago, because I've used that analogy with the mycelium too, because how better can you understand that we're all connected? And if you look at our nervous system, it looks just like that,
It really does. Yeah. So Go ahead, Elyse.
No, I was just gonna say there's just so many different times and spaces that it all kind of blends together here, but times when we are, whether it's sitting around the sacred fire or working with the wind. There's one right now that's just dropping in. We during the pandemic, we had some women that still wanted to gather together, and so we ended up doing a retreat in Destin, Florida. And one of our women that was there had an epic vocal activation that occurred. And as she declared, we did this beach session, right? We were sitting on the beach. It was pretty cloudy. We all had our like hoodies and sweatshirts on. We're sitting on the beach, but we're going around doing these declarations. We had this activation happening, and she stood up and she declared whatever she declared. And when she opened her arms, the amount of birds that started swarming her, I was scared.
Like seagulls?
They were seagulls. Yeah. They just started like, I mean, they weren't there and then they were there and they were there like swarming her in a storm, literally like a hurricane, quacking and squawking around her. And she just kept singing to them and talking to them and like all this power.
It's like Snow White. Oh.
It was cool. It was really cool. That was like one moment. And then, you know, the wind speaks a lot when
Yes.
I'm personally in meditation. You know, I love meditating outside and just laying on the land. And when something comes in or comes through, it's like the wind just picks up. And I take it as a sign of like, this is it. This is the thing to really listen to. This
The
is the
winds of
thing to
change.
land.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One other thing that feels really bold to say out loud, but also feels really potent because the power of intention is that strong. So before we pressed record, I was sharing that I'm in Hawaii at the current moment of this recording. And I have been called here to deepen the work that Gina and I are doing because of gridding, right? We both are called in our retreats to go to these places around the world to grid and anchor and activate and receive and offer back to the land. So my family and I are here, and I've been guided to write this book about womb healing. Last year, I had a ectopic pregnancy that ruptured in my body. Not a great situation, but it essentially was this like volcanic eruption in my body. And did a lot of prayer work, a lot of stuff before arriving here in Hawaii. We just arrived about 5 days ago. I've had all these little God winks and like things that are here in the space that are like a part of my meditations and things you just can't really make up. Well, yesterday morning, the volcano here on the Big Island erupted at 4:44 a.m.
Of course. Of course.
We
See,
were told to go see it. Our family get out at 4:44 p.m. and had this entire experience. And like in my head and in my body, like I actually feel that the intention and why I'm here and what's up, like that it erupted so that I could be here to experience it. It sounds crazy and it sounds out of body, but I'm like, wow, that's how powerful we are when we create these intentions to receive the medicine of the land and to be that vessel and to offer back and to receive the magic. There's so much intentionality and so much magic if we just tune in and actually bring in this honoring of our own vessel of magic. It's powerful.
it is powerful. And, as within, so without, right? So, people go to Hawaii to heal. It's the heart chakra, right? And so I've had friends who have gone there and they said, I couldn't tolerate it. I had to leave, or I didn't want to leave. It's like you either stay in Hawaii or you get booted out of Hawaii. It really just depends on where your frequency is and what you need to heal. And so, I don't know, you work with a lot of women, right? Women in your ceremonies. And this is something that I've even been dabbling with. I don't know if this comes, from my ancient knowledge of working with the land, but I noticed that if I get 4 women together, each of a different element, so fire, water, wind, and what's the other one?
Earth.
Earth, that's right. Whoa, do things happen? I mean, I'm very clairaudient, so we'll go out into the woods and we'll just kind of sit, in a circle, and we'll see how we can connect. And like you talked about, I think the wind is one of the easier ones to pull in, at least in my experience. I feel when you're really focused and connected, you can really create some good wind. And have you had these experiences where you've gotten certain, when you bring that feminine energy in, and it can be powerful in how we can actually connect with one another? Like you said, with the birds flying around her, there was something within her. Maybe she was an earth energy, and that was just really connecting with the elementals. And that's something that I'm learning. I'm a fire sign. But I've also got, I've got some Taurus and I have some air and Libra too. So it's a little balance there. So have you experienced this in some of your ceremonies with working with the feminine energy?
Oh yeah. I mean, a resounding yes. The amount of magic that gets activated in these ceremonies is just like beyond measure, and the earth responds, you know, women or not, men too. But there really is something extra, they're saying, I'm hearing spirit say extraterrestrial, okay, about like womb to womb, this womb to womb connection. And, you know, the water element's coming in for me right now. It's been like my power element as of late. We actually just did a retreat in Tulum, and we, in our closing ceremony, we talked, it was the elemental power retreat. And we talked about, okay, which element are you going to work with for the next however long? Like, so mine is water. And there's this thing about the birthing waters of creation and how all of our bodies hold water, but especially our wombs, right? There's this connection between our womb, the womb of the earth, you know, the celestial womb. And so, yeah, I mean, there's just so much potency. I don't have any like one particular thing that's coming in. I mean, we've seen so many like crazy things that to us are just like normal. I know when we were in Tulum, Elyse and I had the funniest conversation because there was like a moment where we had a client session, but then we were prepping for our retreat. So Elyse was like tending to that. So I took this session just on my own, our Zoom session. And I come out of it and she's like, how'd it go? And I'm just explaining it to her. And I'm like, and then she became a sunflower, and like part of the sunflower was wilted, but the other part was very alive. And so we were working on feeding and nourishing the sunflower so that the wilted flowers could fall off and there's space for new. And I'm just talking about how she became a sunflower, and Elyse just starts cracking up. She's like, this is the shit that we talk about. Like, and this is just normal. Like, these are just our conversations. I will say, as far as the elements and the land and women coming together and the healing that happens and the potency, the sort of dominant response that happens in our circles, in our ceremonies, are really these like big vocal activations. We have witnessed
I'm already getting, because I speak light language and it comes through, and I've been kind of holding my tongue a little bit. It's almost like being around you ladies. Like, I'm like, Goria, Shana, Haki, Jonohoria, Takahiana, Gohoshkiana. It's like coming out. And I'm like, oh. I feel like on that movie Labyrinth, when she goes to open up the, you know, the two doors, and he's like, you know, that's what I feel like. It's like, sometimes I've got to just, but it's like, here it comes.
Oh, well, there you go. So you are living proof of what tends to happen. It's just something about like the co-creation that is birthed through us, that Great Spirit has like, you know, gifted us. It really does hold space for women to activate and embody their true voice. And it's not just like oh, all of a sudden I'm singing. It's like these visceral, like full body, like, the sounds that are coming out of these women. I mean, it's like, we can't make this shit up. I couldn't like say to these women, like, okay, now make a sound and it's going to be embodied and like have these things come out. Like, they just happen. And it's just proof. I guess that's like such a linear word, but it's just proof of the potency of the collective intention, of the activating of the ley lines within us, within the land. You know, these things they just happen, and it shows us like, this is within you. Like, the things that come out of these women, it's so clearly their unique lineage, their unique, you know, recipe of power and beauty and grace coming out of them, that there's just no other way to describe it. And it's so nourishing for us. And that's the other piece on the conversation of people coming together. Part of the beauty is the mirroring effect, right? We get to see within each other these pieces and these threads that we might not normally witness, and we come into these spaces with the true awareness that like, what's mine is mine. Well, what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours, and that there will be things that will be common threads between us. So that's part of the beauty, I feel, as well.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, how beautiful. And so I do want to dive into some of these. You talked about sound, and, you know, these are practices that go way back. I mean, we think of ancient Egypt, and I've actually had dreams where I have seen myself burying something in the corners of the inside of the pyramids. And it's almost like a crystal or an amulet or talisman or something. And so, you know, as we dive into these different healing practices that you ladies are using at these retreats that are assisting with our remembrance, it's assisting with raising our frequency, right? And activating things within inside of us, because we are multidimensional beings that have these abilities that many of us are beginning to remember. And even the word awakening, it's like, you know, I think we're just remembering everything, you know, and then we have these aha moments, and I'm having them all the time. And that's what I love about this podcast, is I'm meeting people like you. And it's like, I get off and I'm off the show and I'm like, whoa, I just changed my belief system again, you know? It's like, that's why I call belief systems BS, because they just keep changing all the time on me. But, you know, so I want to start off with the sound healing. So, you know, the ancient Egyptians were very well aware of the power of sound. And I actually listen to solfeggio frequencies all day. Even when I drive, I have my sound bowls out. I'm using this all the time. I notice a shift in my animals. That's something that I definitely notice. I've even noticed, I live in an apartment, and when I started doing certain frequencies, I noticed all my neighbors moved out and new ones moved in. And so they were loud and kind of, annoying. And I'm like, I'm trying to meditate. My neighbors are loud all the time. So I'm like, I'm going to focus my intention and I'm going to start raising the frequency of this area. And it was really funny. They all moved out within 2 months, and it was like, boom, all new people. They're all quiet and peaceful. And so I think, like you talked about, the power of intention, we can definitely do this to shift our external reality. And so what can you ladies tell us about the healing benefits of sound, and how does sacred geometry incorporate into that? Because I know with your ceremonies, you've got to be doing sacred geometry.
There's two things I want to say, and then I know Gina has a lot to share on this. But sound is part of our origin. Sacred geometry existed. Yeah, she said chills. I'm like, these existed, before the humans showed up on this planet. And it's just, I don't know the exact quote, but it said that each sound that we make the vibrational frequency of the sound that we make, the word that we choose to use, can be felt all the way in the stars in the far off galaxy.
Quantum
entanglement. And so yes, exactly. And so when, like, our words matter, and not only that, just toning, making sounds, that it's higher frequency, right? When we play the sound bowls or when we use instruments, they're higher frequencies than our words. They're higher frequencies than the cells in our bodies. And so the tones change the makeup of how our cells and our blood move within our bodies, right? We've all seen at some point in time some sort of sound vibrating water. And so again, we go back to the elements and our bodies being made up of water. Those tones and those frequencies will ripple in our bodies differently, of course, making a change in our bodies. And so the ancient part of the sound, it's just so innately within us. And I think so many times people are afraid to tone or vocalize or like let this organic or orgasmic sound because it feels scary or unknown. But what it's actually doing is like unleashing that truth within us.
Yes. And that's very powerful. And I noticed that when I first started speaking light language, I used my hands at first. My voice wasn't activated. And then I started toning. I would hum, I would om, I would sa, ta, na, ma. I did a lot of that. And I was toning my vocal cords. And now thousands of dialects come out of my mouth, So I think that's so important, is like you talked about. And this is really funny. My name is Tanya, but my parents called me Tone my whole life. That was my nickname. And I thought, maybe that's my ability. Maybe that's my gift. It's been there all along. So Gina, I know you've got some things to say on this topic. So jump
So
on
many. So many. Well, I, just completed this beautiful training and activation with one of my longtime mentors. Her name is Ama Sophia Rose, and she is just the most beautiful embodiment of just wisdom and integrity and devotion. And I would call her, I would go as far to call her as like an ascended master embodied. And she works with sound. And so the dynamic presence of sound is so with me, because I've literally been every single day for the last 5 weeks in these practices of vocal alchemy. So there's so much I could share about it, but I'll just share my personal experience around just this particular activation. I'll first say that it's really just given context and voice to so many things that have been active and opening and unfolding within me for so very long. But one of the things that we learned in this training was accessing the Akashic records through the ancestral song lines.
Ooh.
So it's a unique way to sing into the records and to move through. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. Like over the last 5 weeks,
I'm getting goosebumps, so keep going.
shit come out of my mouth.
Activating me on something right now, so keep going.
Yeah, there's just so much. I'll just share one of the practices. So one of the most resonant practices with me was around the alchemy of singing through your pain. Not just your own physical pain, but often, often, always, I'm going to say, it's interconnected with ancestral stories and ancestral trauma. So one of the practices is feeling in your body where pain has existed. And the recommendation is to really start with the things that have kind of been lifelong things, right? Things that have plagued you for life. And you sing the pain, you give it a voice, you let it move through you. And then it's this journey of, as you're singing the pain, really feeling into like, where did this come from? Where in my lineage is this? What's the story I was telling myself? Are there any energies that have been feeding off of this? And then you sing the alchemy of the pain. So, the example would be like, if there was I don't know, this is coming forward, like a heart condition, right? Somebody has heart palpitations and they let that pain have a voice, and they're in this exploration and inquiry, but then they call in the aspect of self that is already healed and well, that has a fully functioning heart, where their heart is open and balanced and pumping blood in and out. And then they sing the resonance, you sing the resonance of that piece. And you can, until it's clear, you can do like a call and answer between the pain and between the high self. Or like, say it's your inner child and they really need mothering. It's a conversation between the inner child and the mother who can recognize the inner child. And it's just like been the most, hands down. I mean, I'm going to be 40 this year. I've been on the spiritual path for a very long time. But especially, the last maybe 15 years, like similarly to you and to Elyse, traveling the world, receiving that training and this activation and that healing and this retreat and that plant medicine and whatever.
Now you're activating your sound.
And I can say hands down, this vocal alchemy, this Dove Codex training has been exponentially the most potent medicine I have ever received in my whole life. And the beauty of it is, it's fucking coming through me.
Yeah, it is. And you know what? This reminds me, I started when I sit down to meditate and pray, I actually do light language now. I don't speak English anymore. I speak light language, and things just manifest a heck of a lot faster than if I'm speaking English. And there is, I think they even talk about this in the Bible, like when you're speaking in tongues, to pray in tongues. And I think that's what light language is. It's just, it's like ice cream, right? It's all just different flavors, but it's all ice cream. And so we just label things very differently. But I think what you're hitting the nail on the head right here with this, with like, Elyse had said, sound and light. That's what we are, right? And so when we tune into this, we tune into our divinity, and it is powerful when we do that. And so, like you, when I turned 40, I'm 46 now, but when I turned 40, I had this massive awakening. I quit my 3D job. I moved across the country. I started my own business. It was like this massive shift in timelines for me. But it also was a massive shift in healing for me as well. I went from where I lived in Florida, which I was working through my ego and a lot of different things on those ley lines. And then I moved out to Idaho, which was much more of a spiritual shift for me. And so I do think many of us are being, we're being guided to certain places, but we're also being guided to use our sound at these locations. And so when our group gets together, we will resonant tune. That's exactly what we do. And it sounds like that's what you ladies are doing at your ceremonies. You're using the sound bowls, you're using the humming. Humming is so powerful. I don't know if you've heard of the Gateway experience. It was something that was created by the Monroe Institute many years ago, but then the CIA took it over and then they started using it in their training. But you can actually find it on YouTube. Well, I started going through the process of the Monroe and, of the Gateway experience. And that's when I started to remote view. I started to have these activations where I could kind of, project my consciousness somewhere else. Well, a lot of it is humming and different types of things that you're tuning in to your voice and your vocal cord and your sound, and it uses different frequencies. It's powerful. So check out the Monroe Institute, the Gateway experience. If you can find it, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to find, but once you do, that was powerful for me.
Yeah, so beautiful. And this is just reminding me, speaking of like a gridwork experience, I don't know how long ago it was now. I think it was somewhere around a decade ago, maybe longer. I got called to this little tiny island, the island of Malta.
Oh my God, no way. Okay,
I'll
tell you the synchronicity.
Okay. Well, I knew nothing about it. I just had this was like, I must have been in my late 20s. So I remember it was around my Saturn return, and I kept getting like all these hits about like, you need to go here and you need to go there and go. And I had no clue what Malta even was. I just got this download, like look up Malta. It's a sacred place. You need to go. So anyway, I go, and it's this place where there's all these ancient temple ruins, where there are so many in the world, but it's kind of lesser known. And I go to my first site, the first temple ruins site that I visited. And, everyone has all these questions about like, how did the Egyptians build the pyramids? And how did the people on Malta build these sites? And they must have been giants and whatever. And I just like stood there. As soon as my feet like hit this one spot, I just had this very, very clear knowing that we built these things with sound. Like, I want to move that log there. Whatever it was, right? And I was like, we did it with sound.
So in Florida, Elyse, there's the Coral Castle. I don't know if you've heard of that, but that's supposedly, I actually did a show with a friend on that. Supposedly he built that with sound as well. So there's power to that. There's power, and to use your light language to do it. That's even, oh my gosh. But I got really amped up about Malta because about a month ago, I had a guest on the show. And after we got off the show, somehow I said, I'm being guided to Malta. I don't even know if I think I've been there, but I don't remember. And she goes, me too. I keep getting things in my email about Malta. Well, I got online and was like, oh, it's a sacred site. And so it's really funny. You just validated that for me. There's something about Malta that maybe I need to go and activate something within my sound,
Mm-hmm. I know someone that I can put you into touch with to do that.
You do.
Yeah.
I may find the man of my dreams there too. I've been saying that because I'm like, I've been single for a while because I've been going through this process, and it's just a lot easier to do it alone right now, But I thought, maybe these sacred sites is where I'm meant to be guided. But during that time, during COVID, I traveled to all these national parks. I was being guided to get out and travel. And so I did like 6 different parks out here in the Pacific Northwest. And I was mostly there by myself all the time, but I was doing these land clearings and I was stopping my car and getting out and putting my feet on the grass and losing time for quite a while in some of these locations. But I think many of us are being guided to go to these spaces that may have a denser energy, and we're going there to transmute it and to heal it. And thank you for bringing up Malta, because maybe there's some listeners out there who are being guided to go to Malta too. We'll all connect.
We will hopefully offer a retreat to Malta. I've brought this
Yes.
over to Elyse before.
I'm coming. There you go.
Perfect.
And I'll call
so it
I'll
is.
call my guest from a month ago and be like, we're going to Malta. She's in Canada.
Yes.
She'll probably be happy to get out of the smoke and head to Malta. Oh, so, okay. So these are things that the ancients knew. These are things that we know. We're just tapping into them. And so I also want to talk about the power of movement. And so this all kind of correlates together, right? So you ladies are doing these ceremonies where you're using movement. And I've got a friend, it's funny, he's kind of starting to go through his spiritual awakening. He's like, Tanya, he lives in Florida. He's like, I go out on the beach and I start chanting things and I start moving and doing these dances. And he goes, and it's really strange for me. I don't understand what it is. So I told him, you're going to have to watch the show today, because we're going to be talking about movement. And I've got a call out to him. I'm not going to say his name, but he'll know who he is. But he, there's power with movement. And I know I've had some Qigong practitioners on my show. And I know I started studying Donna Eden's work, energy medicine. I'm sure you gals know
Love
who
her.
she is. Awesome. I met her. I actually manifested her in my life. It was really weird. I met her, and her daughter's name was Tanya. It was just really weird synchronicity. But I started doing some of her work when I was working in the hospital, and I began to recognize how powerful my energetic field would get. And so can you talk a little bit about movement as the fifth element, and what does that mean? And what is the power of movement, and how can we start doing this within our lives?
Yes, this is another juicy one that we love. Yes. So I want to just share that Gina and I actually grew up as dancers and movers. So we learned in a kind of technical, I'm even going to say colonized way of how to move our bodies. And in a way that was the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? In patterns and rhythms that were created, and many of them beautiful. But what has transpired with us now and through the last, let's say, 10 to 15 years is really going from this structured movement to a movement that is more organic, more tribal, more ancestral, right? We're bringing in the again, going back to the origin of movement in our bodies, in a way that our bodies want to move the energy. So when we don't move, we already know, we've talked about transmuting energy, we've talked about moving sound. It's the same with movement. If we are not moving our physical bodies, these energies are getting congested in our physical form. We are a denser physical body. And so in order to continue to transmute those energies, to alchemize the energies, we must move our bodies. That's why people feel great when they go take their run in the morning, right? They're getting their run, their mind's running out, and people working out, same thing. We're working, we're sweating out those energies. But when we take it deeper, when we connect with the elements, we connect with our sound, it becomes a more guttural form of movement. It becomes a more organic form of movement. And through that, there's so much medicine we can receive through our channel. We can offer our medicine, and there's truly no words that can be put on what movement does for our bodies, but truly it is so healing. And again, when we come together in community and we can mirror each other, and we can offer this dance of energetics, again, creation, healing, intention, love, expansion. There's so much goodness here.
It is. And just receiving information too. I know with me, when I get out, I'll go to a lake and I'll just start moving and doing my light language and creating. And it's like the amount of information that comes through to me too, just that ancient knowing, that ancient wisdom. And so that's a good way for us to tune into our inner knowing, right, is to create movement, make sound. I know when I would move, I would really visualize light kind of shooting out of my hands and extending as far as it can go, and in every reach, in every area. And I began to recognize the more I did that, I would repel certain people when I was working in the hospital. When I started doing my energy routines in the morning, people that were more on the negative scale, I would say, would actually see me in the hallway, turn around and literally walk the other direction, because I think my auric field was getting so strong and so powerful that they just couldn't resonate in that frequency. But then I also noticed other people would gravitate in, and those were people that were complimenting and positive and uplifting. So there is power in movement and also cleansing our aura as well, and really in our space. I think too, when I was, booting out my neighbors, through my sound and I was doing a lot of movement as well. And so there's things that we can do as grid workers when we incorporate not only the sound, but the movement too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, to me, they must coexist at this point in our evolution, and that's just part of it. I teach like a movement medicine class to mostly, I live in Los Angeles, mostly people who are like professional dancers, and a lot of it is really unraveling, right? These stories that have gotten created in these like linear movement patterns, and not just that, but like the objectification of them as beings and whatever. But I've been talking with them a lot lately. We bring sound and toning in through the body, because I'm like, who are you if you're not expressed also through your voice? Mm-hmm. Like your body, the medicine, the gift of you as an artist, it exists in your movement. But like, what happens when the sound and the movement come together? There's like this marriage of aspects of self that happens. So it's like, to me, they must coexist. It's funny. I just had this conversation with my partner the other day, because he's like a sound healer himself. He sings and plays guitar and just brilliant and beautiful, but he's like very resistant to dance.
Really?
And he's just like, he'll work out, he runs, he does jujitsu, whatever. So he does move his body, but dance in particular, he's just like, not really my thing. But he had a ceremony fairly recently, and I don't want to share too much of his story, but he asked it was ayahuasca. I think I can share that.
Yeah. I've done shows on it. Yeah, you can share.
Great. And he had been having a challenging time in the journey, and he asked ayahuasca, can you just show me what needs to be done and how it's done, as opposed to me doing it myself? Like, can you help me and just show me? And he's like, oh, babe, it was the most beautiful thing. She just put this screen up and she just started dancing everything that needed to move. And I was like,
Mirror?
Wonder how dancing would be for you.
Well, and what is that? Maybe that's a block within the masculine energy, is that they don't feel, but you think in native I've got a friend here, she's Lakota, native, and she said they get all up in their headdress and they start chanting and dancing and moving. And so there is that energy, but maybe some of us are resistant to that. And I notice when I'm kind of stuck in a funk, I get up and I just start dancing around my space. It's like, okay, I'm going to start moving. There is power to movement. And so, once we recognize that, it's like you've got these keys. Now it's like, let's put them together and let's open up the door. It's like, let's allow ourselves to really tune in to that knowledge within inside of us. And so we've talked about sound, we've talked about movement, we've talked about connection. Is there another aspect that you ladies feel that we need to talk about in the show that maybe we have overlooked when it comes to tuning in and remembering our ancient wisdom?
I think one of the things, just to kind of add on to what we were just sharing about the movement and maybe where some of the resistance comes in, is that we know this, and I think there's many circles that talk about this and are in dialogue, but it's the reminder that for so long we've been taught to be sterile and still and strip away these kind of wild expressions. And so sometimes it takes a little bit longer to unremember the things that we've been taught. and to let those layers of the onion peel away. And so, you know, if there are any listeners right now and viewers right now that are like, I'm still feeling that resistance to the movement, you know, you can go into more prayer and meditation and really start asking the questions of like, what do I need to unlearn? What stories can I drop? And really ask for the remembering of, again, that origin of tribe and togetherness and creation. Go out and listen to the heartbeat of the earth. Like, lay your ear to the earth. You can hear her heartbeat. You know, tune in with the animals and with the nature and with our elements, because they teach us. They teach us how to move. You know, stand in front of a tree and just mirror the wind that's happening in the leaves of the tree. And so I think that for many of us, really, it's just that we've had so many generations of not moving and not expressing and not vocalizing. And we've had these like repressed shutdowns of our bodies and our souls. And so while many of us are remembering, there's still a lot of people who haven't quite remembered the fullness of that.
Mhm.
And so no matter where you're at in the journey, just know that there's deeper remembering, and that you can take these steps and tune in a really safe, beautiful way that mirrors how you can slowly welcome into your field and into your
Oh,
body.
absolutely. And it's like, I get the visual almost like, you know, if you've had a stagnant cup of water, you know, sitting on your porch for months and you're like, oh, I'm thirsty. Do you want to drink that? Probably not. You're going to want to pour it out and go get a fresh cup of water. And that's kind of what's happening with many of us. That stagnant water has been our programming. It's been everything, all the gunk that we've kind of learned. And now we've got to dump that out to make room for the real, you know, the good structured water, the good living water that we can bring in, you know, through that ancient wisdom and that ancient knowledge that each and every one of us has. But it's really just, you know, understanding that we have all of that within us. And every time we connect with one another too, like even the show today, I've had so many aha moments that, you know, just by us connecting, and we aren't even physically connecting, we're energetically connecting right now. And so that's even, you know, something that we can even bring up is that just even having an energetic connection with others can be so meaningful. I know when I do some of my larger, you know, sessions with people online, it's like just having a group of people together, you know, in that energy can move mountains. And so when you have that focused intention, and when we started, we were like, all right, we're going to have fun today. We're going to laugh. We're going to share a lot of really, you know, cool wisdom and knowledge. And that's exactly what we've done. And so you ladies are doing retreats. Can you share, you know, with the listeners, all that you're doing, the services that you're providing, and how people can contact you?
Totally. I want to have Gina do that, but I just want to share one little tidbit because it does feel important. When you were talking about the energetics, this is also the potency of us being these vessels of medicine, and that we do have everything within. That even if you aren't getting on a plane to travel to these places you want to go, or maybe there's certain herbs that you want to work with that you don't have access to for whatever reason, we can energetically tune in to these frequencies and energetically be with them, and let the flowers, the crystals, the people, whatever, like we have that power to energetically
I'm
connect.
hearing Mahala. It's like we are, I'm bathing in Hawaiian energy right now. Like I can feel it just by being connected to you. It's like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
people are bathing in this this beautiful Idaho energy in California. It's like, you know, as we connect, we're sending the energy out for people to connect as well. Yes.
Yeah. I'll share about our offerings. The other piece that wants to come in is like, if you are watching this, listening to this, and you're like, honestly, I have no freaking idea how to do any of that stuff. That's okay. Like we're talking really, really big stuff. And you know, we just met you, Tanya, but like Elyse and I have had decades of study, decades of practice, decades of devotion to these to these pieces where we know exactly what to do when we say, oh, I need to call in the resonance of the Blu-ray or whatever. We know how to do that, right? But you may be new to the journey and you may be questioning yourself. And I would say, if that's you, first of all, it's okay. Like you're here for a reason. So if you're listening to this, it is a possibility for you, because if it wasn't, you would not be here.
Yeah, especially an hour and a half in or so. If you're still here, then you're meant to be here.
Yes. And then secondly, I would just recommend getting a mentor. Like, while all the medicine you could ever need is right there inside of you, because we have lived for centuries in these weird freaking upside down world programs, sometimes we just need support in getting there and even knowing how to go about accessing our inner wisdom. And we have had many mentors, both together and individually, and it is always supportive to have a trusted guide who can hold a safe container for you and just to help to lead you to, your inner wisdom. So I just felt like I wanted to drop that piece.
It's important too, because a healer isn't here to heal you. A healer is there to guide you to your own healing, right? Within inside of you. So that's potent, information. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes. And if there is a healer who tells you that they hold the only keys, run the other direction.
Yes. Not my reality. That's what I'm saying.
If they are feeding any thread of codependency and making you believe that you do not have the answers, but they do, bam, get out of there. And with that, okay, we have lots of things to offer. A really, really great way to connect with us and a beautiful community is within something called the Rewilding Sisterhood. This is a membership that we just birthed a few months ago. And within the membership, there's like a community thread where Elyse and I are in there a couple of times a week sharing channeled messages, like different practices that you can do. Sometimes we do card draws, or we'll guide you through like a somatic practice, or we'll offer a sound healing. It's kind of always something different. And we also bring guest experts into the space. And then we have a monthly healing circle ceremony for the beings that are inside of the membership. So that's one thing. We are in the process of launching a super duper beautiful new offer called Embodied Wealth Mastery, where we're really taking these mystical, magical tools and helping you to integrate them in a way where you can actually create wealth, like in a tangible way.
Oh, yeah.
So that you can utilize it to be more effective in doing the things that you are called to do. We're not live with that yet, but connect with us. Let us know you're interested if that's something you're interested in. And then, of course, retreats. We got a couple in the works. We are for sure going back to Tulum in May of 2024. We will very likely be in Hawaii working with us and Alma Sophia, who I mentioned, in early 2024. And then we have this beautiful, beautiful container. It's a 4 to 6 month long 2-on-1 mentorship called Ancient Wisdom, where we have a very specific process within sessions to help you to access other lifetimes and really go deep, deep into like a hypnotic state to access these other lifetimes, to gather whatever information is needed to help your soul come into more remembering, more wholeness. And within that container, we also do like a deep, deep cellular level detox. I know I'm talking very fast.
No,
It's a lot of energy moving to clear things out. And we do a DNA activation to really activate those potent, powerful codes and aspects of self that really help you to be more effective. We're in this like deep inquiry around how can we be more effective in this dimension as these magical beings that we are, because it can be really easy to get caught up in the play of the magic and the metaphysical, and that has its beauty and it is a gift in itself. But sometimes where many of us get stuck is like, how do we actually use this magic and work with it in this dimension.
You're
So
right. And I think that's part of our mastery is learning that, because for a while I just wanted to be off planet for a while. I was like, oh, I want to go experience this. But no, there's a reason why we're here on planet Earth. We're remembering the knowledge, but we're anchoring it in, we're embodying it here on Gaia. And that's exactly what many of us are awakening to do, to that remembrance of why are we here? And I think it's like you talked about the peeling of the onion. It's just, every time we're peeling away layers and layers and layers of why are we here? And I love that you're doing those sessions that you talked about, the ancient wisdom. That's kind of similar to what I do in my quantum healing sessions, is guiding people. Many of us are being called to activate DNA, activate those ancient gifts and abilities within inside of us. And I'm sure you ladies are doing it too, where, in my sessions, I'm speaking a lot of light language when they're in a theta state, and so they're waking up, or in the hypnosis, they're actually starting to speak their ancient tongue. And so it's really fun to be able to witness that and to be a part of it. But I've had experiences too, where someone came and said, to me and said, I want to meet my dragon. And I said, oh, this is going to be a fun, session. Well, during that session, I actually met my dragon, and my dragon hung out with that dragon. And, there was just this really cool exchange. So when we're, diving into the subconscious mind, we don't really know, what's going to come forward. And it's really neat to be able to do that. And it sounds like you ladies have had a lot of experience, on, working with this on yourselves and then being able to offer this to the world. So I really appreciate each of you coming on and sharing your energy with us today, sharing your wisdom, your knowledge. And is there anything else that you'd like to share before we end the show?
I feel pretty complete.
This has been
What's your
so
website?
beautiful.
Is there a website that people can go to?
Yes.
Awake. Yep. awakeandsoulful.com.
Great. Well, thank you. This was so fun. And what a pleasure. What a pleasure. I knew this was going to be a fun show. Like I said, when I was doing the summary and the artwork yesterday, I knew we were going to have a really deep dialogue today on things. And so we touched on a lot of different ways that we can heal, ways that we can remember, ways that we can go within and tune into our own ancient wisdom. So thank you so much for coming on, Elyse and Gina. I really appreciate it.
We had an amazing time. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You deserve to navigate your life in alignment with health, happiness, and abundance. To learn more about the services that I provide, including Beyond Quantum Healing Hypnosis, EFT tapping, and the Emotion Code, visit my website at www.theexistentialempath.com.